Hello everyone, Garrett here. I'm going to go over some strategies and techniques used to achieve good score on Spitfire attack. Um, there are two different, I suppose, difficulty sections of the game. One is from the beginning 0 points all the way up to probably 28 or 30,000 points, somewhere in that area, where the game transitions from practically a beginner level to advanced level. At that point, the enemy aircraft movement is a bit more complex. The AI is a bit better, and a lot better. And they fire, the enemy aircraft fire at you much more quickly, and the landscape at the bottom scrolls much faster. So in the event you need to heal yourself by shooting what the manual refers to as anti-aircraft guns, or AA guns, which is how you heal yourself, they scroll by pretty fast, so you got to be quick on the draw. These particular techniques that I use can be used in either the beginning stage or the advanced stage. So you can utilize them, right out of the gate. They're successful techniques regardless of the difficulty level of whichever part of the game you're currently in. So there are a couple of different techniques that I'm going to go over just to outline some of the techniques I'm going to be talking about. Technique number one is determining the best home location for your crosshairs. Here's the crosshairs right here. And of course, the home location is going to be dictated by the probability of which vertical position the enemies typically spawn at. So that's one of the ones I'm going to be talking about. Another one is firing techniques and joystick movement techniques while you're firing, which is necessary to determine. You can actually, by virtue of your joystick movement, you can dictate which direction the enemy aircraft will fly once they are spawned. Obviously, they can either fly left or they can fly right. You can pretty much control which direction they're going to fly once they're spawned, and that involves joystick movement. So I'll get into that as well. You want them flying from left to right rather than right to left. Okay. I'm also going to go over some evasive maneuvers when the enemy aircraft is firing at you, or when you anticipate they might be firing at you. The most efficient and low risk way of evading enemy fire. If they can't hit you, you never die. If you never die, well, your game never ends, and you can achieve astronomical scores. So I'm going to go over when to start your evasive maneuvers, and I'm also going to go over how to conduct your evasive maneuvers. And also what to do if you do get damaged, whether during normal gameplay or during evasive maneuvers. So although it's not likely you'll get shot down while doing evasive maneuvers, sometimes you'll still get hit and you'll get damaged. And you can tell if you're damaged because you'll see black smoke all over the screen. Here's what you'll see. See the black clouds? Those black clouds will, that was a bit loud. Those black those black smoked plumes show up on your screen when your fighter is damaged, which typically gives you about anywhere from 4 to 6 seconds to go heal yourself. If you run out of time, usually you'll crash. So I'll get into that as well. Yeah, that's pretty much the different sections I'm going to cover. And I honestly feel that anybody who can get a good grasp of these different techniques and implement them, they should be able to get, at the very least, 6 figures. At the very least. So, Roger, for you, that's good, because that's worth at least 8 ESI. Even if you don't get 1 million, you'll get at least high enough to get at least 8 ESA from the leaderboard. So that's good. Okay, so let's start out with the home location. So, like I said, the home location is essentially this vertical position here where you want to basically consider your home for your crosshairs, and then from there you can work from there to go, to go higher, to go get the higher spawning enemies that spawn up in these areas. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They'll never spawn above number 1. That's why I kind of limited it to just these 10 sections here, and they'll never spawn below the horizon, which is at 10. And also, the ones that spawn at 10, essentially every enemy spawns. There are 3 dynamics to enemy spawns. Their location where they spawn. They'll always spawn either on the very left side or the very right side of the screen. Always. They'll never spawn in the middle of the screen. Number 2, the direction in which they fly after they spawn. Which essentially renders factor number 1 moot. Because, for example, if a newly spawned enemy aircraft essentially is going to be flying right once they spawned, then it doesn't matter if they spawn over here or spawn over here. Because if they spawn here on the right side, well, in a fraction of a second, well, they're flying right. So within a fraction of a second, they're off the screen, which will then reappear at the exact vertical coordinates on the left side of the screen, still flying right. So it really doesn't matter if they spawn over here or over here. If they're flying right, they're ultimately going to come at you from over here. And if they're flying left, whether they spawn from here or here, ultimately they'll be coming from this direction towards you. We want to try to avoid that. Typically, and from what I've observed, all the big dogs on this game go, they constantly fly left, and they attack the enemies coming from the left, flying rightward. So there's a reason why all the big dogs do it. It's because that's the easiest way to get it done. So your home location, essentially I have found that most of your enemies will spawn between 7 and 10. Okay, vertically. So here, let me zoom in on that a little bit. So they'll spawn between 7 and 10. All right. I forgot the third factor. So factor number 1 is where they spawn, whether it's on the left or on the right. Number 2 is the direction in which they spawn. Number 3 is their vertical movement after they spawn. Sometimes they'll spawn. Let's assume they're all spawning and then flying right. Okay, so they're going to be coming at you from this direction. You're flying left to converge with them and meet up with them and then shoot them down. They have a slight vertical movement as well as moving to the right. they'll move up a tad bit. They'll either move like up this direction, or they'll move down this direction, or they'll move straight. They don't move much. So by the time they get from the left side to your crosshairs, they will have only deviated one row one way or one row the other. Like say for example, they spawn at 8. By the time they reach your crosshairs, they'll either be here at 7, here at 8, or here at 9. They'll never spawn here and then end up over here. So you can use that to kind of plan where you want to, how you want to maneuver, so you can have a more effective kill shot by the time the enemy aircraft reaches your crosshairs. Now, number 10, and this is why I've chosen 9 to camp out. As you can see here, this crosshair is more in the 8 area. That's just because this happens to be the screenshot I took at the time. But typically speaking, you want that crosshair. You want that crosshair to be like in the 9 area, okay, like right about there, okay. So yeah, you want the crosshairs to be here. Now, the vertical movement, this only affects. Yeah, this would only affect spawners that spawn on row 10. Because if they spawn on row 10, they're either going to go up and they'll end up at 9 by the time they get to their crosshairs, so you don't even have to move to kill them, to shoot them down. Or they'll go straight across where you have to nudge it down just a tad bit. That's the only time you even have to touch your joystick. And even then, sometimes, because of the size of the sprite, you can actually get a kill shot even if he moves straight across down 10, because the top of his aircraft will be on the bottom of your crosshair and he'll still be in kill range. So even then, sometimes you don't even have to move your joystick. You could just keep moving left and allow him to fly into the bottom side of your crosshair. Now, if they spawn on 10 and actually they're coming from this direction and they come across, but they're going downward, as soon as the enemy aircraft hits the horizon, he'll reverse direction and start going upward. So it'll be kind of like a ricochet. So the enemy aircraft would go from here and go down, and then as soon as he hit the horizon, he'll start bouncing back up, and then again, ultimately going right in your crosshair. So 9 is the best because it handles almost 100% of all enemies that that spawn either at the 8, 9, or 10 position without even having to move your joystick. Again, very seldomly, you may have to move down a little bit if they spawn at 10 and move just straight across with no vertical movement. And you may occasionally have to move it slightly upward if they spawn at number 8 and go upward. You might have to go up just a notch to get him, because by the time he reaches your crosshairs over here, he'll be at the 7 row. Okay? So even the ones that spawn at 6 and spawn with a downward motion, downward and right, they'll ultimately get tagged by the top half of your crosshairs, and sometimes in those instances you won't have to move your joystick either. The less you have to move your joystick, the more successful you're going to be naturally. So because there's less variables. Whenever you play a game and there's less variables, the more successful you're going to be. Now, obviously, for the ones up here, you're naturally going to have to, move your joystick up to go after and get those, because they don't fly more than 1 row away from where their spawning point is. So that's that. That's kind of the anticipation dynamic of where they're going to be spawning. Alright, so when you're playing the game, you're essentially going to be moving left practically the entire time, with a small exception when you're firing, and I'll show you that in a minute. So let's go ahead and just start here. I've saved a state, so I'm just gonna load the state. I'm skipping the 0 to 28,000 and going straight to the higher. You see how fast the landscape is moving? Here, I'll reset it. See how slow it is? Now watch what happens once you hit 30,000. You see? So it's a lot faster. Okay, so firing at the enemy aircraft and moving your plane. So you're going to be constantly moving left. Okay? You're going to constantly moving left. The only exception is when you're firing. You're going to move the joystick a tad bit to the right. Alright, and I'm going to demonstrate that here. Okay. So you'll notice I'm flying left as soon as I hit the fire button, as soon as they're in the crosshairs range. As soon as they hit the crosshair or somewhere around the perimeter of the crosshair, I stop moving left. And as I'm hitting the fire button, I'm moving the joystick right. Now you notice I'm firing twice as well. I'm going to get into firing either once or twice in a little bit. But this is important. The reason why you want to move your joystick to the right as you're firing, a couple reasons. And the main reason is this. When you're here, let me pull that video back up. When you're firing at the planes and you shoot them down and your joystick is in the right position, for some reason, like 95% of the time, the next enemy will spawn and they will be flying to the right. They will not be flying to the left. If you don't do that, then there's a 50-50 chance that they'll be flying left or right. The objective is to get as many enemies as possible when they spawn to fly rightwards towards your crosshairs, rather than from the right moving left, because then you got to change directions and it just changes the whole dynamic of the game. And that's how you do it. When you're hitting the fire button here, let me see if I can slow this down a little bit. So when you're hitting the fire button, you're going to actually stop moving left. Oh, well, yeah, you could see the joystick movement right here. Okay, you see moving left, you start to fire, you move the joystick right as you're firing. So fire right, left. Fire and right, move left. Fire and right, move left. Okay? So, and not only that, but it also helps with wrist fatigue, especially if you're getting good enough where you can play the game for half an hour at a time. It really helps with wrist fatigue. I think it takes about an hour and a half, somewhere, I don't know, like an hour and a half to get to roll it at 1 million. So that helps too, but that's an indirect benefit. The main reason for doing it is to influence the direction of newly spawned aircraft going rightward rather than leftward. Okay, so that handles that. Now, with regard to firing once or firing twice, if you take a look at some of the scores that some of the big dogs have done, you got the current record holder is Glenn Sampson, and he kind of does a hybrid. He'll fire once or twice sometimes. From what I've observed, he typically fires twice if he misses on the first one. You can Greg Degneffi, he fires twice every time, which actually is that has its benefits as well. Because if you're firing twice, then basically you're developing a routine, and you're also developing consistency, which is very good. Because in any game, the more consistent you are, the more effective you're going to be, and the longer you're going to last. So, but it is a double-edged sword, because although you are gaining with that consistency, and basically you're creating muscle memory by constantly doing the same thing over and over and over again, and therefore improving how you handle adversity when you run across it. It's a double-edged sword, because if you fire twice and then you miss, you have very little time to react to the enemy that's now going to be firing at you. You only have I think, between 1 and 1.5 seconds between the spawn time of the enemy aircraft and the time they start firing at you. And when they start firing at you, you do, yeah. Let's see if I can. Let's see which one. If I can miss one of these things here. Did I miss one? Come on, I gotta miss one of them. Okay, see, I missed the first time. No, I don't think I missed any. At any rate, if you just missed one and then continue firing left, you have much more time to take evasive maneuvers, because that guy's going to start, the enemy's going to start firing at you. Whereas if you fire twice, you have a twice as likely chance of a kill shot, which that's also another benefit. The only downside is you now have only a split fraction of a second, if you miss the second time, to take evasive maneuvers. And quite frequently, when you do take that evasive maneuver, you're already too close to the enemy aircraft, and he's going to pelt you. He's not likely going to shoot you down, but he is going to damage your ship, where now you gotta go through the hassle of shooting one of these things, which is the AA gun, or the anti-aircraft gun. This is what heals you. So if you see that black smoke, that indicates you've been hit. You need to go shoot. You need to go shoot one of those things. Come on. One of these right here. These are ammo depots. They don't do anything but give you 100 points. That's all they do. So to be quite frank with you, I don't even know why they put them in a game. Because every enemy aircraft you kill is 500. So why shoot these for 100 when you can shoot the enemy aircraft, which spawns at a much faster rate, and they're a lot easier to hit? Why bother going after these? They're like no purpose. So at any rate, but you do need these. These are the anti-aircraft guns. This is what takes that black smoke away. Because when you get hit with and you see the black smoke, you have about between 4 and 6 seconds to hit one of these, or you're dead. You'll lose a life. So yes, I think I'm going off on a tangent here. So firing in the second time. So for those who are just trying out this technique, and for those who are just interested in getting a much better score than they currently are without the techniques, I would highly recommend firing twice. Whether you hit the guy in the first shot or not, just go ahead and fire twice anyway. Get in the habit of it. Once you've received all the knowledge in the game, and you've gotten so good at it, you're now reaching into the 300,000-400,000 range. At that point, you can then go to the one shot per guy if you want. I mean, there have been strings of 30 or 40 enemy aircraft where I just I was able to just scroll left, fire, scroll left, fire, scroll left, fire, without having to fire twice. But you know, you have to have a lot of experience of the game, and once you get that experience, and you've already gotten those neurons firing in your brain based on all that experience, you can then do that in your sleep as well. But when you're first starting out, just trying to improve your score, but hopefully by a massive amount than what your current personal best is, I would definitely recommend going the Greg Degnefi route rather than the Glenn Sampson or Garrett Holland route. Because I also use a hybrid. I do one or two, depending on the situation. Glenn, I think I said this already. He does one shot, but if he misses, only then will he do the second shot. Greg, I think, does two shots almost every time. So, and that's the best way to go, especially until you've reached the point where you've mastered the game. Okay, so that takes care of the firing one or two times argument. Let's see here. Okay, so what to do if you miss? Well, you're going to have to take evasive maneuvers because he's going to start firing at you. And if you don't dip your crosshairs down into the landscape, one shot, so it takes for you to lose a life if you're in the air. If your crosshairs are down in the landscape, which kind of implies you're diving, then you can avoid that. There is a caveat to that, which I'm not sure. They may have figured. Other people may have figured it out. I don't know. But there is actually a way where you can manipulate the enemy fighters to hang out on the sides of the screen, and they can shoot at you all day long, and you won't get shot down. You may only seldomly get damaged, where you have the black smoke plumes showing up on the screen, where you now have to go repair yourself, but you'll never be shot down. And I'm going to show you that trick as well. But you want to use that only sparingly because you're not generating any points, and the whole point is of this entire exercise is so you can generate points. So you can either be dodging or manipulating their enemy aircraft to not shoot you down, which takes time. Then it defeats the whole purpose. It takes a lot of time to do that, which I'll show you in a minute. But it can come in handy if you're in a bind. All right, so evasive maneuvers. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so fire twice, fire twice, fire twice. We're looking for 2 misses. Okay. I think it's at the 1 minute mark. Let's go over here. Oh, there we go. $147, I think. Okay, here we go. Okay, as you can see, what just happened there, I missed twice. As soon as you miss twice, go back to the left in the leftward direction, but now dip down into the landscape. Okay? And right about there is fine. I mean, if you go a little further, that's fine. But dip down and then immediately go right back up. Eventually, you'll get to the point where you can time your dip down and then back up to where you can meet this guy right when he gets to your crosshair. So that way, again, you're not wasting a whole bunch of time. And then you can just resume your flow, your normal game flow, of picking them off one at a time as they're coming from the left. But yeah, just to recap, you missed twice, Dip down, go back up, resume firing. Okay? Now, occasionally, they'll get a shot off and they'll damage you. You probably won't die. It probably won't be a kill shot, but you might get hit with some flak and it might damage you. So when you're going down, let's see here. When you're going down, after you miss, and you see the black spots, as you're going down, you can stay down there a little while longer until one of the, see, and this guy popped up, until one of those guys pop up, and then you could just go after it and shoot it. I think you have enough time to miss one. If you miss one, you can still be in the dipping position or the diving position. In other words, your crosshairs are in the landscape rather than in the sky. But if you miss the second one, you're out of luck. You got to fly back up into the sky because you're definitely gonna die. You may, and you'll most likely be hearing the alarm by that time too, letting you know, hey, you're gonna hit the ground. Sometimes when you do that, not all the time, but sometimes you'll have enough time to go back up into the air, so the alarm goes away. Then quickly dip down and hit the first anti-air gun you see to heal your plane. But I have found that's pretty, under all circumstances, that's probably going to be your last chance. If you miss it, if you miss the anti-aircraft gun the third time it comes around, you're probably toast. Okay. Okay. $125. All right, so sometimes you'll have to perform repeated evasive maneuvers in a row because the bad guy is still up there and he's just in the worst position imaginable for you. And as soon as you go, after you dip down and then come back up above the horizon and into the sky, he's immediately firing at you again. So you got to do the evasive maneuvers again to get away from it. That's going to happen frequently. The good news is you can perform 10, 15, 20 evasive maneuvers in a row. And if you play your cards right, you won't die. As long as you, in a timely manner, as you're dipping down and not spending too much time down there, firing at the and you fire at an anti-aircraft gun if you've been hit to heal yourself, and then go back up, then you'll be fine. But here's an example of needing to do it more than once. Once, twice. Okay? So you don't have to dip for a long time. You just go down and then up. Down and then up. Okay, see, I got hit with flak. Now I got to go down. Now I got to hit a gun. There you go. Now go back up. So, so hopefully that technique should help you be successful, because that's the whole name of the game right there. That'll make or break you. I don't care how good you are, you're going to get shot at, and you're going to have the black smoke, and you've got to get adept at going down, taking evasive maneuvers, and while you're down there, tagging one of those AA guns to heal your ship. Without mastering that, you cannot master the game, no matter how well and how good you shoot the enemy aircraft. That's basically what makes you play a long time rather than just a considerable amount of time. Okay. I already went through that. Yeah, so if you missed the first one, here, let me pull up Stella here. And then I'll resume. Okay. So, oops. Okay, so you missed. Oh, I was in the sky. Okay, you actually have a little bit of time down here to get what you need done. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to go up in the air. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so you got 5 seconds down there before you die. So, and within 5 seconds, let's see. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so 3 AA guns will have passed you in 5 seconds. 1, 2. Okay, only 2 that time. 1, 2. Okay. So 2 will pass. But as you can see, if your crosshairs are pointed in the landscape, they can damage you and give you the black smoke, but they cannot shoot you down. But the only downside is you got the alarm. Now here's the trick that I was talking about earlier. The trick. I gotta go heal myself first. Okay, the trick is try to maneuver your joystick to where the enemies are on the very edge of the screen. Again, they can damage you, but if they're all the way over there, they cannot shoot you down. So if you need to bide some time, this is what you can do. Okay, so I got damaged, but I didn't get shot down. And once you get damaged, you could, again, just fly right down there. Fly right down into the landscape, shoot an AA gun, and then you're good to go. Now you can also combine this technique. You can combine this technique with when you're doing your evasive maneuvers. Okay? So you're playing along. Okay? I'm going to miss on purpose here in a second. Okay, missed twice. Ah! Once. See, I mean, you could just keep doing these evasive maneuvers. But let's say you got stuck. Okay, and the alarm's going off. Ah. Let's try it again. Okay, so you're getting stuck down here, and the alarm starts going off. Try to go up into the sky, all the way up. Just keep it back. Keep it back. And then as you're going up, move your joystick so where the enemies are on the side of the screen. That way they can't shoot you as you're flying up into the air. And then once you stabilized your condition, you can then go back to shooting the guys down here in the 9 position. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Ah! See? If you miss them that second time, you don't have a whole lot of time to do evasive maneuvers. 1, 2. Yeah, you pretty much have to. If on the second time, if you miss, you immediately have to do the evasive maneuvers, or else you're toast. See, even that time, I got damaged. Yep. So the game acts quick. I mean, you really got to be quick on your toes. This is a game where even tenths of a second matter. So there's that. Okay, so just to recap, home location at about the 9 spot, which is right about there, which is where most of your enemies are going to spawn. Okay, the 9 spot, and then as you can see, most enemy, I'm not even moving the joystick up. See that one? I had to move it up a bit. And usually when you go up, the next ones that come out will only be 1 or 2 rows either above it or below it. So you can step up or step down until you get back down to 9. But essentially I fly left. I start flying left, and then as soon as I determine what their vertical axis, where their vertical axis is, I'll move the joystick up to go meet them. So let's see if I can demonstrate that in slow-mo. Let's see here. Okay, see, I move left, and then as soon as I determine it's on a different plane, I'll just move the joystick up or down to meet them. But ultimately, I always go back down to the 9 position, because again, that is where most of your enemies are going to spawn, in the 7, 8, 9, or 10 position, and that's just the sweet spot where you have to move the joystick the least. I even made a video for the evasive. Alright, so the evasive maneuvers. I call this the evasive borders maneuvers. That's keeping the planes, the enemy aircraft, on the border of the screen. As you can see, I'm moving the joystick to manipulate them to hang out either on the very left or the very right. And that'll usually buy you some time until you can stabilize your environment. Let's see what else I have. Evasive repairs. Okay, yeah. So when you get damaged, see if you get damaged. See, there's the damage. Now you just go down into there, and if you have to take a couple of seconds to find an AA gun, by all means do it, because that's the name of the game. Is you only have 6 guys. You have six planes. That's it. You don't get any extra men in this game. So the more you can last on each life, naturally, the better off your result is going to be. Let's see here. No, I think that's it. So hopefully this helps, especially for you, Roger. I really, really hope this helps you. I'd like to see you get 1 or even 200,000. I mean, that would be fantastic. Hell, I hope you flip the damn thing. I hope you kick my ass. But yeah, I really hope this helps. Not only Roger, but anybody else who watches this. It would be fantastic if there was suddenly a bunch of people who became really good at this game. And don't forget to submit the score on Twin Galaxy also. Twin Galaxies. If you have any questions, just write something down in the notes. I read all the comments, so I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has. So yeah, I think I went a little over on this one. It's 43 minutes, unfreaking believable. Sometimes I don't shut up, but thanks for watching. If you watched the whole thing, great, thanks. And if you didn't, well, thank you too. We'll see you next time.